Okay, so I am now going to show you how to make an attachment on your animal. If you are ready for an attachment, it means that you have completed the body of your piece. You've attached it with a coil and you've smoothed it out. So this is hollow inside, okay? One thing I will need to do to make sure that I can release any air that is trapped inside, especially during the firing when the air expands and could potentially cause a crack or an explosion, is I want to put a hole in it. I am going to do a hole now, although I bet just through working with it, the hole might get filled in a little bit. So I'll go back later and open it up again. You don't want to wait until the piece is really dry to put a hole in it because it will be very hard to get a hole into it, especially with a toothpick, okay? I've had to drill holes in things before and it can cause it to break. So figure out where the bottom of your piece is going to be. So this is going to be my chicken body. You can see that I have my sketch here. I'm going to be adding the head right here. So I'm going to put a hole in the bottom where no one's really going to see it. I'm going to take my toothpick and just put a toothpick-sized hole into the bottom. You'll also notice that my piece is resting on a towel, which is also on a board because I don't want to squish it or for it to get flattened out. So I have it on this soft towel. I would recommend that you do the same as your piece becomes more delicate. Although I wouldn't store the towel in the bag necessarily because it could get moldy, which is, it's okay, but it can get a little stinky and you don't want to encourage too much mold. So I'm looking at my sketch and I'm going to start creating the next kind of large piece. I could do the tail, but the head is going to be solid and I'm not too worried about it falling off. So I'm going to work on the head and then start the tail after that. I haven't decided if I want to make a small pinch pot and then add the pointy part for the tail. Okay, so I'm going to start with the head. I made the head just by forming some clay. I added the beak and I kind of added some sockets for the eyes, which I'm going to add in later. Okay, so there's the start of my head, right? I flattened out the bottom of it, and I also flattened out a spot on my chicken so that I can attach it thoroughly. So then what I'm going to do is take my, and your next attachment might be a pinch pot. If you attach another pinch pot to your piece, you're going to need to put a hole in it somewhere. So if this was a pinch pot, I could put a hole in the eye, I could put a hole in the mouth, somewhere that it's going to, work with the piece and not kind of look odd. So I'm looking at my sketch and I feel like I want this head to be kind of standing up a little bit more. So I'm roughing up both areas that I'm going to make my attachment. Again, looking at my sketch, using my bamboo skewer or your toothpick here. I've got my slip. I'm going to take some of that and apply it to both pieces. I am recording this video, so if you miss something, you can certainly come back and watch it. And then I'm going to gently push to attach. If your pinch pot's, your kind of egg shape is still really wet, you might want to let it firm up before you start putting attachments on. You may also need to, like I'm worried about this falling off while I'm working on it, I might want to take a little chunk of clay. So I can take a little chunk of clay and just kind of rest it under the head while I'm working. Obviously, I need to build up the front of this a bit more. I'm feeling like it's not quite looking like a chicken. It's, I don't know, looking more like a regular bird. So I want to give it a bit more of a puffy chest. So I'll probably go in and build it up a little bit more. But the other thing that I want to do is reinforce this joint here. So I'm going to take some wet clay. I had a coil made, but it got a little bit dried out. And I'm rolling a nice wet coil. You want this coil to be wet so that it can nicely blend into the piece. If it's too hard, you might experience cracking, or you might end up pushing into your piece too much. And then I'm also going to throw a little quick scoring onto this coil. And put a little scoring around the head too. Really want this to stick. And then I'm applying more slip. And then I'm putting this on almost like a Band-Aid, right? And I made mine a little bit thick because I kind of want to have a little bit more bulk to the head anyway, so I'm not worried about it being thick. Yours may not have to be quite so thick. Had a blending tool. Of course, I don't know where I put it. All right, so your blending tool would be good to use here, but also your finger is a great tool as well. So I'm just using my thumb right now. So it almost looks like the chicken's wearing a shirt. Every animal will be a little different, so you might not be, your approach might be slightly different. If your piece has a different kind of head, maybe your head's really delicate, so you'll start with a different part of the body. Remember that this is also three-dimensional, so you want to consider all sides. It should look clean and smooth from all sides and considered. All right, so that is my attached head. As I said, I'm going to work on trying to create a high kind of tail coming off the piece, puffing up the front of the chicken a little bit more, and adding the wings after I've done that. So don't jump to doing the most finest, delicate details until you've really gotten the shape down. Take the time, look at your sketch, really look at that form, and make sure it's looking like what you envisioned. Some changes may happen, and that's totally fine. It doesn't have to look identical to your sketch, or you might decide you like something better than the sketch, and that's okay too. But in my case, I like my sketch, and I feel like it's got a lot of the elements that I want in my chicken sculpture. So I'm going to continue to work on this. A reminder, a small hole in the bottom, and let's say this was a pinch pot, the head, which it's not, so I don't need a hole in it, but if it were a pinch pot, I might put some holes where the head's going to be, or where the eye, not where the head's going to be, where the eye is going to be. I might put it under the nose somewhere, or the beak, somewhere that it's not going to be overly obvious, or it's going to kind of work with what I already have there.